Okay, so once you have your alignments in and your all your profiles in, and it's all to spec, then you're ready to start building your corridors and constructing your roads. First thing that you have to do when you're building your corridors, first thing we have to do is make our assemblies. Okay, so you do that by going up to the under the Home tab on your ribbon, go over to the Create Design panel, and you'll see Assembly. Hit that drop down, hit Create Assembly. Okay, first thing we're going to do is create a full road assembly. So good thing to do is to make sure you're naming things appropriately so that you be able to find things easily. So full road. The assembly type on this is an undivided crown road. Assembly basic all codes, that's okay. Hit OK, and I typically like to place that off just a little bit right kind of near our profile views. So I'll click that over there. Another thing that I like to do is right off the bat is to create a circle. So C enter for circle, and based off of that point basically just create a circle. So now I know where to find my assemblies if I need to. Otherwise these little assemblies can get lost in everything else in the drawing. So it's just for reference. Okay, so now we go back to our assembly marker, and then we can go and start creating or putting in our lanes and our curb and gutter and things like that. So to activate the tool palette that has all that information in it, just go under your Home tab to the Palettes panel. It's this button right here, Tool Palettes. You click on that and it opens up the different sub-assemblies that you can use. You have all the tabs over here. Also you have the little stacked tabs down here. If you click, you will have some other options that just didn't fit in this screen. So okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to put some lanes in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and find our lane tab. So if you click on, I don't have it here, so I clicked on the little stacked panels and found now I have lanes over here. So now I'm in the lanes panel and I have all different lanes that I can use. For this particular road we just have basically 2 lanes, and we're going to have some pavement depths and some base depths and sub-base depths and things like that. So we're going to use the lane outside super multi-layer. So once you click on that, it's going to open up this dialog box. Good thing to get in the habit of is making sure things are on the right layers. So right now my current layer is this radial lines. I probably want to change that to C road assembly. That way, and probably change it here just so I know that the objects are going to that C road assembly. Okay, so then we can scroll down here to the bottom. We get our parameters for our lane. So right off the bat, I'm going to the right side. There's going to be inserted at the crown what width of the road. So 12 foot is the width of our lane, and we're going to go at 2%, so minus 2%, so it's sloping down away from the crown. Super elevation slope, we're not going to have any super elevation slope, so we'll leave it as default. If you're going to have super elevation on any other project, you'd use one of these left or right, depending on which lane it is, the left or the right. So we're going to leave it as default. Then we're going to go down. The next things we're going to change are these pavement depths. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to do 3 inches of pavement 1. So if you do 3 with the quotation marks, it's going to change to feet. We're going to do 4 inches of pavement 2 depth, 0 for pavement 3 depth. Our base, we were going to do 8 inches for base 1, base 2, 0, base 3, 0. Our sub base, we were going to do 1 foot. No second sub base and no third sub base, so 0, 0, 0. Once you have that in, you can go and click this marker over here for our assembly, and it puts the lane in on the right side. Next thing we do is we can go here to side, just change that from right to left, and click that marker again. So now it puts the left side lane in. After we're done with that, we can just right click, which will exit out or escape. And now we're back to our tool pallets. So now we can add in the next thing to our road, which is going to be our curb and gutter on both sides. Okay, so next thing we do is we go over to curbs, and we are going to use this urban curb and gutter general. Okay, so now that you see I've changed my default layer, my layer is now at that C road assembly. So I scroll down to my parameter section. I see that it's going to default to whatever side I did last, which was the left side. It's going to insert it at the gutter edge, which is what we want. And what do we want? How do we want the gutter to slope? Be minus 2%, and it's going to slope away from the crown so that everything catches into that curb and gutter. Okay, then we have some other sub-base depths, extensions. We'll update this stuff later. Right now we'll leave it as default. Sub-base slope, we'll leave it as minus 2%. And then we get down to these dimensions A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and what do those mean? What are we looking for? So if you hover over them, it'll tell you briefly what it is. If some of these things don't make sense, you can always push F1 for help. F1 opens the help menu. Okay, and then over here we can go to our subassembly reference, expand that, and we can expand the subassembly reference and look for urban curb and gutter general, probably under the third subassembly reference. Hit the plus there, go down, find urban curb and gutter general, click on that, and now it tells me. So A is this depth here, B is this width, D is that height, E is the width, or C is the drop from the flange point to the flow line, E is the width from the flow line to the back of curb. F is the top top of curb to the back of curb. G is that depth there. So if we want, we can just keep this open and we can flip back and forth to see if we're having the right dimensions. So right now we're going to leave A as is. We're going to update B, C, D, E, and F. So if I go back to my Civil 3D now, actually I close this out, it's not going to let me do that. Actually, it will. If I just pull it off to the side. I'll just open that up again. Okay, just pull that off to the side here. Now I can see those dimensions while I update this. So my A will remain default. B will be 2 feet. So if you do the 2 foot, changes it to inches, or yours might be defaulting to feet and not inches. It just depends on how your drawing is set up. Okay, so that's B. C, that depth there. Right now it's 1 inch. If this was 2 feet from that flange point to that point, and we were at a 2%, we take that 2 and multiply it by 0.02, we'd get a 0.04 foot drop. So for C, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in 0.04 and then the foot mark, so it's 0.48 inches. D, the height from the top of curb to the flow line, we were going to do 6 inches or half a foot, so that's good. Our E, we were going to have the flow line to the back of curb, and we're going to do, we'll just leave it at 8 inches. For F, so 6 inches for that, that's a good default. And then 13 inches for G, so we'll leave it as is. So I can close out of this dialog box, or that help menu. Now I've got all the parameters the way I want, so I go to the left side. You make sure you click the top left corner of that lane, that little marker there. So now it places that curb and gutter in right there. You can change the side to, actually let's tweak this, the settings here before we put one on the other side. So just right click to accept, and then we'll work on creating the other side of our curb and gutter as well. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just increase the depth of this curb a little bit. So if I select the curb, right click and go to properties, now I can tweak any of these properties that I want. Just as before, I have the parameters down here. And you can do this with anything, with lanes, with any subassembly. So I'm going to scroll down here to my parameters, and I'm going to start updating some things. So my A value, okay, that's this value right here. I have it as 7 inches right now. Right now, this here is 3 inches, 4 inches, so that's 7 inches, and then we have 8 inches down to the basically the sub base, to the base depth. So we're going to up that from the 7 inches. I'm probably going to go about halfway in between there, so I'm going to add 4 inches to that, so we'll make 11 inches. So you see that updates right there. Okay, this G value, that's this depth at the back here. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper than this portion, so I can kind of maintain a good slope in there. So if I know that my depth here is 6 inches from the top of the curb to the flow line, and then I went basically 11 inches down, or yeah, 11 inches down here, so I'm going to add that 7 inches, oh sorry, 6 inches to that 11 inches, so I'm going to put down to 17 inches for my G value. So now you can see that's updated as well. It looks pretty good. Now I want this sub base to extend down to the sub base here. So our sub base depth is right over here, 1.5 feet. So basically it's 1.5 feet from this point, the top of that the road, to the bottom of that base right there. So I have to go that full depth. So if I have 7 inches of pavement here, plus 8 inches, so that's 15 inches, plus another foot, which is another 12 inches, so we have 27 inches to get down from the top to the bottom. So my sub base depth I want to put in as 27 inches. And now you can see that matches up. And everything else can just remain the same. That's a good good size for our curb and gutter. So I can actually close out of the properties. I don't need to change that properties anymore. Now I like the way that this looks. I don't have to go back in here and remember everything that I had done before to place it over here. I can just actually take this and mirror it to the other side. So if I just select this this subassembly and I hit the mirror button up at the top of the ribbon, and then I go to that point out on the outer top right corner of my right lane, and I click on that link, and now it basically mirrors that over to the other side. So far things are looking good. I just need to add daylight out here on the edge. So for right now, we're just going to do a basic target to surface. We're not going to get fancy at the moment. So I'm going to go down to the daylight, or no, not sorry, generic tab, and I'm going to use link width and slope. So I click link width and slope. It opens up the properties box. I go down to the parameters down at the bottom. It's going to go to the left side because that was the last side that I worked on. The width doesn't really matter. Actually, back out of this, I picked the wrong one. Close that properties, go to link slope to surface. So now go down to the bottom. So we're dealing with the left side. We're going to do at a 4:1 slope, okay, which is 2%, which is actually 25%. But if you didn't know what the percentage was for a 4:1 slope, you could actually type in 4:1 and it would convert it to the percentage. Or you could enter the percentage if you knew that. It's going to do this in a cut and fill situation, so both situations, which is good. So now we're dealing with the left side, so I go to the top, the back of curb of my left curb, and I click that link. Puts that subassembly in there. Then I can change the side to right from the left side, so then I go to the right side, top of curb on the right curb, click that link there, right click. Now I have my assembly for my full road. So what that's going to look like. Now the thing that I like to do is I like to create all my assemblies for intersections as well. So we can just get that out of the way with this creation. So we're going to create some other assemblies below this. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to assembly, hit create assembly, and we're going to create a half road. I'm going to call it half road left. So it's going to be just the left side of the road, and that's it. So assembly type, again, it's an undivided crown road because it's basically following that crown. I hit OK. I'm going to place that just below the other one. Really easy. I don't have to go through all this. I already got my assembly for my full road, so I can just copy everything on that left side. So just basically just select everything on that left side, go up to copy up at the top here in your ribbon, and click that link. And it's done. The important thing to do is always, when you're copying or mirroring or doing anything like that, with assemblies, you're always going to choose the sub-assemblies first and then choose the option from the ribbon that opens up at the top here. Never use the normal copy command like CO or mirror or anything like that. Like these modify ones, never use these generic ones because it'll mess up your corridors and you won't end up with a very good product. Okay, so now we built our half road left. Now we're going to build a half road right. So we go to assembly, create assembly, and I'm going to call this half road right. Again, it's a undivided crown road. Go down to the bottom, hit OK. Put that down below it. I choose everything that's on the right side of my full road. Choose the copy up on the ribbon. Pick that marker. Escape. Now I have my half road right. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create basically it's a full road, so both lanes, but no curb or no daylight on either side, so it's just the two lanes. So I'm going to go up to assembly, hit create assembly, and this one is going to be called full road, I'll put a dash, no curb, no day, so that I know that there's no curb and no daylight. Again, assembly type is undivided crown. The importance with this choosing the assembly types is it organizes it so that you can find things in your tool space a lot better in your prospector tab. So I hit OK. I'll put that one down below. Okay, I'm going to copy these two lanes over. Important thing is you can't click both of these like this. It takes away the option to copy. You have to only choose stuff on one side, copy, and then choose from the other side. You can't copy both sides at once. So I'm going to choose that left lane, hit the copy, click that marker, hit escape, hit the right lane, hit copy, okay, it didn't go. Copy, make sure you're picking that little marker right there. Okay, so now I have that assembly all created. And this assembly here is good for when you have like a cross junction where you have a four-way. That's when you're going to see this assembly used. So it's a good idea just to have that created just in case you need it. Okay, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create basically a section of road. It's going to be a full road, but with no daylight and curb on one side, and then another assembly with no curb and daylight on the other side. So I'm going to go up to assembly, hit the drop down, go to create assembly. I'm going to call this one full road, the dash, no curb, no day. Let's start with left. So on the left side there's going to be no curb and no daylight. Again, assembly type undivided crown. Hit OK. I'll put that one down below the other one. I'm going to move this just a little bit. There. Okay, so no daylight or curb on the left side. So I'm going to take everything that's on the right side of my full road, hit the copy, and then click on that marker, and then escape. Then I'm going to pick my left lane, hit copy, zoom in, pick that marker point, and now we get that lane. So now I have that assembly. Now I can create a similar assembly just with no curb and no daylight on the right side. So back up to assembly, create assembly. I'm going to call this one full road, no curb, no day, right. Assembly type is undivided crown. Hit OK. I'm going to place that one down below here. Now this time we choose everything that's on the left side of our full road. Copy and hit that marker. Escape. Choose that left lane or the right lane. Copy. Click that marker. So now we end up with a full road, a half road left, a half road right, full road with no curbs or daylight, full road with no curb and daylight left, and a full road with no curb and daylight right. And we're almost done. We just have really just have one more assembly that we should have made before we move on. So the last assembly that we're going to make here is we're going to go up to the assembly drop down. We're going to go to create assembly. This one's going to be called curb return. Okay, now this assembly type we're just going to have as other. Okay, because it's a curb return. It's not based off of the center line of the road. So I like to put that to an other assembly type. So I'm going to hit OK. And again, I'll just put that one down below the other ones. And this time we're going to create what's going to happen in basically our intersections in our curb, the fillets between the two different roads, or three different roads, or four different roads, whatever we got going on. So with this, basically it's going to follow the flow of traffic. So we want our lane to be on this left side. So basically we're going to take our left lane that we have here, and we're going to go to copy, and we're going to put that at that marker. So now we've got that lane in here. Now, doesn't really matter, but for me, just kind of aesthetics, I like to click on this and change the slope. So instead of sloping down, it's sloping up. It just makes things look better for me, but really it won't matter. But so I select it, go to properties, go down to my parameters. Instead of being -2, I just have it as 2. I can close out of the properties, escape. Now I need to choose the curb and the daylight on the right side. It's just those two. Go to copy and then paste that at that center marker. So you end up with something like that. A lane on the left side and just the curb and the daylight on the right side. And that should be all we need for our assemblies for our intersections. As long as our all the roads are the same. If we have different roads, like let's say we have a main road that's 12 feet wide, and then we have another road that comes in that's 10 feet wide lanes or something like that. Or one of our roads has 2 lanes on each side, and then the other one has just basically 1 lane on each side. It all depends. But since we're having all our roads, my roads the same, I'm just going to leave it as is. Okay, so now we're done with our sub-assemblies, so we can close out of the sub-assemblies. Okay, so now next step to do is we can start applying that to our corridor, or to our alignments for our subdivision. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to start off by creating this main alignment as a corridor. It's a good start to just kind of deal with my main road. So I'm going to go up here, I'm going to choose corridor, and now it's time again to do some naming and changing some parameters. So for basically my corridor name, I'm going to try to create everything as one corridor. This works okay with some subdivisions. Some subdivisions it won't work. Some you might have to create multiple corridors. It's best to try to limit the number of corridors that you have, just so it doesn't get way crazy and out of whack. Usually it's when you have maybe one main loop on one side, and then you have another main loop on another side, and a road connecting the two. That can cause an issue, and you might have to have 3 separate corridors. But I'm going to start off and just call this main road. Okay, then I'm going to go down. The baseline type will be an alignment and profile, because that's what we're following along here. Now I have to choose my alignment. Now either I can choose it from my drop down, or if I don't know my name of that specific alignment that I'm working with, I can pick this little green box, and it allows me to select it from the drawing. Now here kind of shows the importance of naming your roads appropriately and not just calling it alignment 1, alignment 2, alignment 3, because now we can actually go in and choose and know exactly which one we're picking. So I'm going to have this big main alignment, which is my loop drive. So I'm going to select that. And then you have your profile list. So it's going to give you an option of any profile that's associated with that alignment. We have our EG, and I have my loop drive. So I'm going to click my loop drive FG, which is my finish ground. What assembly do I want to apply to it? I want to apply the full road assembly. Okay, and do I want to target a surface? Yes, I do. So I'm going to hit that, hit the EG. So it's going to target out to EG surface. Now, I could go in and set the baseline and region parameters, but right now I'm just going to uncheck that, and it's just going to build a corridor. I'm going to accept the defaults. So I hit OK, and then it goes through and rebuilds your corridor. Okay, so now I put that through there. Alright, I have some issues with some of the layers turned off that I need, so I'm going to open my layer properties box. Take a look at all my frozen ones. Take a look at the ones that I have turned off. Okay, so my C topo feet is the layer that I needed to have on. So now you can see the road corridor going all the way through there. Okay, so that's a start. But next thing we need to do is prepare for intersections. So typically what I like to do is kind of want to make sure that there's no corridor going through this intersection area, because then we end up with overlapping regions, and we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split up this into multiple different regions. Right now it's just one region. I want to split it up into multiple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that corridor and select it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here where it starts and ends. Okay, so it starts and ends here, so at an intersection. I want to bump this back a little bit, and or ahead a little bit from the start and back a little bit from the end to open up that gap. So the way I'm going to do that is after I select my corridor, I'm going to go up to corridor properties, and then here we can see under the parameters tab we can see some basic parameters for this corridor so far. When you see these BLs, that means baseline, and the baseline is the alignment that you're using. Underneath the baselines we have regions, and that's the regions that are associated with that that baseline. So for this one we've got 1 in here right now, and if I select it you can see it highlight in the drawing. Now right now it's set to start at station 0, which is right here. I want to adjust that and move it up ahead. Now either I could type in a value here or I could select it from a drawing. So I'm going to say I just want to go about maybe 80 feet up ahead. So I'm going to just click in there and I'm going to type 80, and it's going to bump ahead. Now the end station, right now it's ending right here. If I want to choose from the drawing, I can pick this little button here, which will allow me to select it from the drawing. So I click there. It goes to the drawing. You have to give it a second, and I can just, this red marker is where it's going to split it at or pull it back to. So I'm going to go about to there, and now I have a gap. I'm going to hit apply, and it comes up with rebuild corridor, so I can rebuild my corridor. It's going to go through, and now I have a gap. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so now I have a gap there. The rest of these I can split up a different way by creating different regions, because right now we're still one region on that baseline. So right here I'm going to create a gap as well. So what I'm going to do is go up here with the corridor selected. Up on the ribbon you go to split region. You choose the region you want to split. So I want to split this region here, so I just click in there. Now it gives me this little red line which allows me to split. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to split it right about here, a little bit back from that intersection. So now what's ended up happening is now I've got a region here and I've got a region here. I just split that region right at that point. So now it's still in that command, so I want to split this region here, and then now I'm going to pick a little region about after that. So I pick that point. Now I've just split this into 3 regions. Now here's 1, 2, 3 regions, and the third region still goes all the way around. Still in my command, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to split this region. Click there, and I'm going to split it back a little ways, like right about there. So now I've just had another region. So now I'm going to split this region. So I click in there, and then I go back and I choose the red marker, probably right about there. Okay, so now I have another region. Just a good idea to just go a little bit away from that intersection so you have some room to work with. I'm going to go to the next intersection. I'm going to split this region. I'm going to split it at this point. Select this region. Split it at this point. Go to my next intersection. Split this region. Back at this point. Split this region. Back at this point. Go ahead a little bit to this intersection. Click there. Going to go back a bit to that point. Click this region. Going to go ahead to that point. Right click when you're done. So now I've split all the regions, but I still have corridor in these spots. So now what I can do is I can go still with my corridor selected, go up here to the ribbon under in the modify region panel, right where we're splitting our regions. If we hit the drop down, we get an option to delete regions. So I click delete region, and now it asks me to select the regions I want to delete. So if I hover in here and I click this intersection, roll to the next one, click this intersection region, next one, click that intersection region, next one, click that intersection region, back to this one, click that intersection region, right click, and now it deletes all of those out of there. So now we have these gaps in here so we can build our intersections. Okay, so now when we're creating intersections, I need to create intersections at basically all of these different points. So there's two ways you can really create intersections. One is by doing it manually, and one is by doing it automatically. Automatic works great. Some situations you can't use manual, or you can't use automatic and you have to use manual. For instance, this intersection that I have right here, where I have my start and end point for this alignment at the intersection, and then I have this intersection coming, or this alignment coming into that intersection point, or that start and end point, it won't let you do an automatic intersection there. You're going to have to do a manual. That's one situation where you can't use automatic. But at these other intersections, I could easily do an automatic intersection. Sometimes you might find it easier just to do a manual. You get a little more kind of creativity with it. So first off, I'm just going to just basically run through creating automatic ones for these three little fingers here. Or sorry, yeah, these three fingers here. So first off, let's start with my north. I'm just going to work my way around. Okay, so I'm at this point. I'm going to create an intersection here. So first thing I'm going to do is go up to the Home tab on the ribbon to my Create Design panel, and I find my intersections drop down. I click that, and I have some options. First one is Create Intersection. So I'm going to click on that. Now it asks me to select the intersection point. So if I go to this point right here, you can see it puts the little X there because that's where I'm having an intersection. So I click there. Alright, so then it opens up the intersection, create intersection dialog box. The important thing to note is that if you have a T intersection, make sure that your alignment that's coming into that alignment at the T is stops right at that alignment, so it doesn't cross over the alignment even like a hundredth of a foot, or even smaller than a thousandth of a foot. If it does cross over at all, it's going to want to make it into a four-way intersection instead of a T intersection. So make sure that it just touches that line. Also, make sure that it does touch the line and it doesn't just come short a little bit. If it comes short a little bit, it's not going to recognize that there's an intersection there because it doesn't touch the other alignment. So that's the key, very important key to pay attention to. Okay, again, now with naming. So with this intersection name, it's going to want to name it intersection 1, intersection 2, 3, 4. gets a little bit confusing in the end, and you have a list of intersections and you have no idea which intersection it belongs to. So good idea to just kind of change these names. So what I'm going to do is basically I'm just going to keep the intersection dash, and I'm just going to take out this next counter, and I'm going to type in what intersection it is. So for me, it's the intersection of Loop Drive and North Drive. So that way I know, or even if you wouldn't even have to put the drive in there. If you don't have other names that are, or like if I didn't have Loop Drive and Loop Street, then you would make sure to put that stuff in. But I could actually just say intersection of Loop and North, because I only have one loop and I only have one north. So that works just fine, and it shortens up the name a little bit. Then I go down here and I have an intersection marker style. So there's two different options. Really doesn't matter which one you have selected, because that's all going to get turned off anyways. So I'm just going to choose intersection marker. Doesn't matter. I can have it shut off. I'll have it shut off in the end. So then I go down and intersection label styles. We have standard or basic. Again, doesn't really matter because it's going to get shut off, but yours probably defaults to a basic label style. Next option here is what type of corridor do we want. So we have two options: primary road crown maintained and all crowns maintained. If you change these, you can see the picture changes. Okay, so primary road crown maintain is going to maintain the crown for the primary road, but the roads coming into it are basically going to just come down into the edge of the road, and they're not going to maintain their crown at that point. This is really good if, for instance, like my situation, I have my main road and it's probably not going to have a stop sign at that intersection except for the one T coming into it. So when cars are traveling along this lane, I don't want them to kind of bump up over another crown. I want them just to be able to go right through. Okay, if you have a four-way intersection, this all crowns maintained might work okay, because then you're just going to have you're stopping anyways at the four-way, so it doesn't really matter. If you had a four-way stop, even if you had a four-way intersection, if this road here was actually going just straight through and wasn't stopping, I'd use this. I'd use the other one, the primary crown maintain. So basically, if your road's going through that intersection and it's not stopping at a stop sign or stoplight, use primary road crown maintained. So for this case, that's what I'm going to use. Hit next. Okay, now you see geometry details. So the priority is listed here. So if you have, if for instance my loop drive wasn't on top and I was given an option, I could move it up and down. This really comes into play when you have like a basically a crossing intersection or something like that. Since this is a T road, it knows that basically the road, that loop drive, that main drive would be my main one. There's no need for that T road to be the main drive. So that's the way it's going to organize it. But if it wasn't the way you wanted it, and it was a crossing intersection, a four-way intersection, you could adjust up and down to figure out which one's priority. So next thing we do is we go down here and we're going to adjust our offset and curb returns. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit this little offset parameters button and make sure our offsets are set. So now we can see our primary road, our secondary road, our left and right lanes for each one. So in this case, our left and right lanes are both 12 feet, and for both primary and secondary road. So the default's to 12 feet. So that's all okay. If our road widths were different on some, we could change these. But since we're all 12, we'll just leave it as is. So we hit OK. That's all. That's just fine. Next thing we have is our curb return parameters. So we click that button. So here we have our different quadrants, and you can see where it highlights the quadrant in the drawing. And I have two. So southeast, southwest. Okay, so for instance, in here I have this one. Now it's asking me, what type of radius do I want? And you can see the little image shows you. Now 25 feet, probably a little bit too sharp. I probably want to increase that a little bit to about 30 foot. So I'm going to have 30 foot for that curb, and then the next one is going to be the same. So I hit next up there and change it to 30 feet. So now I have both quadrants at 30 feet. And I can hit OK. So now those offset and curb returns are set. So now what do we want for our offset and curb return profiles? So next thing we do is we can check our lane slope parameters. So I click that button, and here's where we look at our lane slopes. And both roads are going to be at minus 2%, which is default in Civil 3D, so we'll just accept that. If we had a different slope, we could adjust that here for left or right lanes, primary or secondary. So I'm going to accept that and hit OK. Next thing we have here is our curb return profile parameter, so I'll click that button. Okay, so now this gives us some other options for both of these curb returns. Okay, so we have my southeast quadrant and I have my southwest quadrant. So here it shows basically how that's going to work, because it's going to create an alignment here. Now we have our incoming lane, which is my north drive. So here I'm incoming traffic this way and going out that way. That's why when we created the curb return assembly, we had the lane on the left side, because that's the direction that we're traveling. So you can see that it's coming from the north drive and it's outgoing on the loop drive. Now this next point where we can adjust, we have extend profile along incoming lane and extend profile along outgoing lane. So basically, do we want this to kind of go a little bit in the flats, or do we want it just to stop right at the edge? When I create manual ones, I just only do the basically from PC to PT. I don't add any tangents. But in this case I will, but I won't make them 25 feet. I'm going to shorten them up. So shorten them up to about 5 feet. Okay, so 5 feet for each. I'll hit next to go to the other quadrant, and I'm going to change these to 5 feet as well. And I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so now we've set up all the parameters we need to set up here. We hit next. Okay, now we're going to put in our corridor regions. Now you get a little option up here. Do we want to create a corridor in the intersection area? Yes. Really, I don't see any reason to not create the corridor. If you want just the line work, then you probably would uncheck that, but for every case that we're going to deal with, leave that checked. Next two options are create a new corridor or add it to an existing corridor. If we did the create a new corridor, it would make the intersection alone its own corridor, but we don't want to do that. We want to add it to this other corridor. So we're going to hit add to an existing corridor. Now you choose the corridor that you want to add it to. Since we only have the one, it's the only one there to choose from. Or we could choose it from the drawing by clicking that little green box. What surface do you want to daylight to? Obviously we want to daylight to the existing ground, so I'll check that. Now we can go down here and we have to start putting in our assemblies. So this is why we created all those different assemblies. So first thing we do is we go to the curb return fillets. So if I click on that, you can see basically in the plan view where that's going to go, and you see what the assembly should look like. So this looks exactly like the curb return that we created. So I'm going to hit the little ellipses and I'm going to choose the curb return alignment. If you use these defaults, it's going to end up looking funny. It's going to use CAD defaults and it's not going to look that great. Next thing I do is I click primary road full section, so I can see the assembly is full. Okay, so I click the ellipses. I'm going to choose my full road. Next one. Okay, again, primary road with just the daylight on the left side. Okay, so I click the little ellipses, So this would be my full road with no curb and no daylight on the right side. Next one, same thing, just no curb and no daylight on the left side. So I'll hit the ellipses, choose it from my list, no curb, no daylight left. Next one is the secondary road full section. Again, ellipses, just full road. Next one is a secondary road half section. So this is half road left, so I hit the ellipses, choose half road left and OK. Next one is the secondary road half section on the right side. So I'm going to hit the ellipses and choose half road right. So now we've updated all those and they're good. Now the key here is you want to, so you don't have to go through and set this up every single time you do the T intersection. I'm going to go up here and do save as a set. So I hit save as a set. And now in here I'm going to create, I have to name it something unique so I can reuse it. So I'm going to call this one basically I'm going to call it primary T road 12-foot lane and curb. I'm going to save it. So now when I create another one, I can always just browse to it and choose it right away. So then now I've got everything set up the way I want, so I can hit create intersection. It's going to go through and model my corridor. I probably have to do a REA for regen all, and now it's just built that intersection in. So now what I do is I can go on to my next intersection. So now I'm at this intersection. So this one's pretty easy. I've already got my assemblies all created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to intersections, create intersection, choose that intersection point. Okay, this one I'm going to call intersection loop and west, because it's a loop and west drive. Marker, intersection marker, label style basic. It's going to be primary road crown maintained. Okay, this should be still all default. The only thing I ended up changing was this curb return parameters. I changed the width, or the fillet, from 25 to 30 feet for both of them. So curb return parameters you change, curb return profile parameters you change. And we changed the return profile parameters to 5 feet extended instead of 25 feet. So I hit OK, then I can hit next. Now here, instead of having to go through and pick all these, I can just go to the browse. I can choose my assembly set, which is my primary T road 12-foot lane and curb. Hit open. And now it's put those in. For some reason it didn't like that full road, so I'll just have to change it. And it didn't like the full road either. I don't know why, but it's a lot easier than having to select those other ones. Make sure you add it to the existing corridor. So hit that check mark instead of creating a new corridor. It's going to go to the main road. EG is their daylight. I can hit create intersection. So we just created that other intersection. Okay, so now you can go through and do any of the other intersections that you have that you don't have to do manual. And then I'm going to do mine, and then I'll come back and we'll go through through a manual intersection. Okay, so now I've added the other 2 or 3 intersections that I had. I did this one, and this one all automatically. But now if you zoom into these, you'll see I still got this gap here. So now we need to close that gap up to basically make that seamless through there. So if I select my corridor, if you look at on these corridor regions, you'll see these little diamond and triangle grips. So I have a diamond one here. Some of these have triangle grips. Okay, you'll see the triangles where you have 2 regions together. The diamond is just basically will move that whole region. So now the important thing is you can move these intersection regions over to match up. The issue with that is if you end up having to rebuild a intersection, it's going to suck back those back to where it left off. So a good idea just to pull these other regions into the intersection. So for instance, I grab that grip there and basically click at that endpoint. Make sure your snaps are on. There. Grab this other diamond, snap to the endpoint. So now we have that connected. Again, I can do these other intersections as well. So I grab this, oops, select the corridor, grab that diamond. I'm going to snap back to that endpoint. Go up here, grab this diamond. Snap to that endpoint. And we just go around and close up the gaps, make things look nice. Okay, so then the next step will be to show how to do a manual or an automatic intersection. I'll do the manual intersection as well as cul-de-sacs in a different video, seeing that this video has gotten long enough.